Welcome, 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 everyone, and happy Thursday. It is noon Eastern time here in the booming metropolis just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, known as Ambler, PA. Ambler, Thursdays, noon Eastern time, you know what that means. It is time for Talent Experience Live, your weekly look into all things recruiting, talent acquisition, artificial intelligence, talent management, skills, and human resources as a whole. Of course, we cover it all here. And this program is proudly brought to you by the good folks here at Phenom, whose purpose is to help 1 billion find the right work. That's why we host this podcast, video podcast, if you will, every single Thursday at noon Eastern time. While we also have a wonderful podcast with Cliff Yurkowitz called Unusual Attitudes. Check out his latest episode with Ray Tavares of Truist. And why, starting next week, we are going to be at every single HR event under the sun. I know I myself will be at HR Tech. A bunch of our team members will be at Workday Rising out in San Francisco. So feel free to stop by the booth, say hello, maybe get a demo where you can learn about Phenom's applied AI partnered with its intelligent talent experience platform, which helps candidates find the right fit faster, employees evolve in their current roles and beyond, recruiters achieve next level productivity and efficiency, and managers, who could forget about them? They, of course, get to build better teams through data automation and analytics. Of course, all of this is powered by artificial intelligence, applied AI, machine learning, the whole nine, so you certainly want to learn more. I know specifically we have our AI labs at HR Tech, so you'll want to stop by there without a doubt. Well, now that the bills are paid, that box is checked, let's get into today's episode. A few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of chatting with a number of folks from Deloitte, as well as my colleague John Deal did. We met with Bhawna Bist, Brandon Kennedy, almost forgot his name there, Brandon Kennedy, and of course, Sue Cantrell. And we talked about everything from candidate experience to artificial intelligence to workforce planning and everything in between. And we thought these episodes were so fantastic, we want to get them out there again. So in this episode, we are going to show 3 clips featuring each of the speakers, Bhawna, Brandon, and Sue, so that you are enticed to go and either listen on Spotify or perhaps watch the actual recordings on LinkedIn here or on YouTube. Of course, they are in the description. But without any further hesitation, here is Bhawna and John Deal, myself and Brandon Kennedy, as well as myself and Sue Cantrell, breaking down all things talent acquisition. I hope you enjoyed the episodes as much as I do, and I'll see you after these couple of clips. Thanks so much.
So thank you so much, Bhawna, for joining me today. I'm excited to talk to you. Where are you calling in from?
From Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay, not too far from Ambler, Pennsylvania, where I am sitting right now, and not too far from where I grew up, actually. I didn't move far so that my parents would be close to their grandkids, which I was told was a requirement. So
it's a wonderful requirement, yes.
So Bhawna, please introduce yourself first, because you are the guest of honor, and give us a little bit of background on what you do for Deloitte.
Absolutely. Great to be here again. My name is Bhawna Bist. I'm a managing director in Deloitte's human capital practice, and I'm the national leader for our talent acquisition transformation advisory. So the work I do is serving our clients across industries in transforming the talent acquisition function. So really thinking through the buy side of talent for our clients through strategy, through experience design, processes, technology enablement. And it's a fascinating space to problem solve and design with our clients every day. So I've been at Deloitte in the TA transformation space for about 10 years now. And in my prior life, I was in the industry. So I started in HR, in talent acquisition, took many global roles, led the TA function. So the first 10 years of my career has been in service of the function before I moved to advisory. So I'm very, very passionate about talent acquisition and the transformation in this space.
Yeah, so needless to say, you're speaking from experience when you talk about what are the things that are ripe for transformation. And can you tell us a little bit about your part in the Deloitte TA Tech Trends report?
Absolutely. So I lead our talent acquisition technology trend study. This is the 8th year of our study. And what we really try to solve through this is understanding how talent acquisition technology landscape is shifting, what are the advancements we are seeing, what are the new vendors, new technology, new use cases that are being solved for. And that's the marketplace perspective. But then we also have a point of view on what are the TA technology challenges our clients are working through. What are the problems they're trying to solve? What are the risks they're trying to mitigate? So we do a lot of work with defining the transformation that is enabled through technology. So we bring that client lens and then think through this holistically from the key trends which we see emerging from the vendor marketplace perspective, but also where there may be most interest from our clients.
Okay, cool. And so, as part of these engagements and some of the insights that you've put together, you've bucketed things into 4 primary trends or key trends as part of the report. And can you give me just a quick overview of those trends, and then we can dive a little bit deeper?
Absolutely. So this year's report, we are highlighting 4 key trends in TA technology. The first one, no surprise, is around AI and agent-powered recruiting. And this trend really looks at the advancement we are seeing in agentic TA mostly. We've seen AI for TA being available in the market for a while now. But what's the next level of agent-powered recruiting solutions that are emerging? Again, we categorize them as AI-assisted, augmented, or part solutions. But there's a huge amount of, I would say, interest from our clients to understand the space, as well as a lot of advancement from the vendor marketplace around how these solutions are coming to life. The second trend is around talent intelligence-driven sourcing. And this is really getting very precise in the sourcing side, which is a considerable lift for talent acquisition because there's significant time spent on sourcing. There is less and less success sometimes in finding passive candidates who are a fit. And so we are seeing taking a lot of, I would say, insights and data, competition intelligence, regional talent availability to really coming through technology to enable a much more targeted sourcing strategy. So that's the second trend we are seeing. The third one is around interview intelligence and optimization, which is looking at bringing advanced technologies and AI to help with that interview phase of the process. And this may be around transcribing interviews, scheduling, analyzing and comparing interview notes and providing synthesis for decision-making, fraud detection, etc. So that's the third trend. And the last one is around the evolution of TA technology stack, which essentially is how companies are thinking through the strategy for how the TS tech stack would be put together and configured, and looking at multiple options, bringing in talent intelligence layers, or even agentic solution on that text evolution of what TA technologies would be pieced together to deliver the TA experience and outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously at Phenom are very passionate about talent intelligence and about AI and agent-powered recruiting. We did launch at our conference earlier this year, 25 new agents that are rolling out throughout the year. And I mean, some of the more popular ones from the conversations I've had are some of the ones that related to screening. Like we have a voice agent that has been a lot of people have been interested in, mostly in high volume situations where it's overwhelming to have to do thousands of phone calls and try to get through all of those. But that historically is really what companies have been doing. And they've tried various screening tools along the way, and the voice agent, the sophistication of the LLMs and the voice agent capabilities now is leaps and bounds above what we've had in the past with like voice prompts, and trying to go off script was not a thing that could be accomplished previously. It was like, nope, please press 0 to speak to a representative, right? So, but what are some of the more popular applications, or some of the more asked about agents that you're hearing in your conversations with your clients?
Yeah. Again, great question, and very much we answer every day for our clients. And I think what we're realizing is, there are certainly certain areas of TA which are becoming more great place to do a pilot or get started with, which we see our clients kind of honing in on to start with the agentic journey. I would say sourcing is one of them, where you are thinking of how can we reduce the burden on sourcing. If you have full cycle recruiters, they do not have time to source, or there's a lot of spend around agencies for sourcing candidate. So again, I would say from a risk perspective also, you're talking about mostly passive candidates. So it's about outreach, looking at data, finding talent pools which may have previously not being handled manually, right, from a search perspective. So there's a huge amount of interest in sourcing agents, I would say, because it does provide a lot of operational efficiencies. And also it's kind of a lesser risk as you compare to further along in the cycle, when you start talking about decision making, candidate experience, or human in the loop, etc. So it's almost can we augment recruiters or augment our sources, and look at agentic to look at front end of the processes. The other example I can say is the interview scheduling. Again, I think all of us know how painful interview scheduling is. It's a lot of manual effort still. There has been a lot of advancement in technology for scheduling, but I don't see any client saying, I've fixed my interview scheduling completely and I'm very happy with the outcomes. There's still a lot of friction in the process. So that's another space where we see agentic interest being very high. And then there are some clients and conversations where we are pushing the needle and the clients are like, let's think much more transformative, where we start thinking about agents which are kind of working alongside a recruiter and kind of augmenting much more of their work. So I would say there are certain areas where we see and very, I would say, interest in getting started with. And then there's some complex areas where there's still a lot of decision making, making sure there's a balanced approach, risk is being mitigated as the strategy is being put together.
Yeah, and risk mitigation is a good segue into, the question around to fully automate or to not fully automate, right? To go autonomous or not to go autonomous. And so you talked a little bit about augmentation. So what guidance are you given these teams as you start to talk about the actual execution of rollout?
Yeah. I would say, there are certain things which we need to balance as we're thinking about a future state which is sustainable, in which you have the humans, all agents, the automation available to deliver the work. And the way we look at is, yes, there's productivity gains. There is a lens of risk. There's a lens of experience. And then there's a lens of technology, right? Because I think technology is providing you a lot of advancements and what was not capable in the past, but now that is possible. There's been a lot of hype as well, I must say, in terms of how much we are hearing in terms of completely autonomous functions, no human in the loop, etc. But when we're having these conversations, they're very, very real to kind of understand the different lenses and looking through the entire journey for talent acquisition and making assessments where we have friction points, where traditionally we have not solved the problem of the work itself. And that is really requiring a lot of manual work. You'll be surprised, Evan, to, when we are doing assessments with our clients, and we discover how much manual, repeatable work still exists. And the recruiters and the teams are not happy about it. That's not how they want to spend the day. So really thinking through maybe those low-hanging fruits, and then having a very balanced point of view in terms of what makes sense to assist, augment, and automate. And that can, I would say, vary across the client based on, their maturity, their risk appetite, and also their the willingness to adopt new things. So I think that becomes a spectrum. But again, I think having those lenses and thinking through each step in the TA journey becomes a very critical conversation to define the use cases, prioritize use case, and then get started with your agentic journey.
Welcome, Brandon. Lucky to have you on the show today. I appreciate you taking the time. Of course, Senior Manager, Human Capital at Deloitte Consulting. Brandon, how are you today?
Doing great, Devin. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, no, exciting topic that we have today. Obviously, we typically cover the State of Candidate Experience report here from a Phenom perspective, but it is going to be super insightful, I think, to hear it from your perspective, and specifically the titans in the space and how they're kind of dissecting this information and conversations that you're having. So we'll dive right into it. I think candidate experience is something that I know here at Phenom we've talked about at length for what feels like a decade. But I want to ask you, as it stands today, how are companies defining the candidate experience, and why is it so important? Has it changed drastically, over the last year and 6 months, especially with the institution of or the conversation around artificial intelligence, I should say?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the candidate experience has been at the forefront of recruitment strategies for a long time, but I think it's being elevated in a way that we haven't seen before, and certainly because of AI disruption, right? In the simplest form, we think about candidate experience, right, as the end-to-end recruitment experience that a candidate goes through and how it's enabled by technology, right? But as far as working with clients, right, it really truly is foundational, I think, to driving a successful TA transformation strategy, right? Leading with the experience, if you will, versus leading with things like process or technology.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I think I've said this on a number of podcasts at this point, and somebody's going to slap me on the wrist for saying it here at Phenom. But I've always said the best application process is no application process. And I think we're headed in that direction, right? When we talk about artificial intelligence and voice screening and things like that, we still need the processes in place from a human resources perspective. We still need that system of record. But slowly but surely, that candidate experience is becoming more and more seamless, where it's simply uploading a resume, everything's personalized, click apply, and the system or process is beginning to be automated. But there still seem to be these friction points that come up regularly from organization. What are you hearing from clients that are the biggest kind of hidden friction points that are often overlooked? We constantly think about easy apply with LinkedIn, all of these sorts of seamless applications. What are the ones that people maybe overlook or forget about?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would think about hidden friction points more as common tensions, if you will.
Yeah.
You have candidates, right, that expect a personalized experience, right? They want innovation, the things that you mentioned, right? Easy to apply, seamless experience, right? From handoffs throughout the funnel. But then they also really want clarity in the process, right? They want to be able to understand what roles are best suited for their skills, their interests, their abilities. But they also want to understand where they stand in the process. If they have questions, how can that be a seamless experience, right? On the other hand, you have recruitment teams really that are focused on driving efficiency. There's cost pressures, there's speed to hire pressures, there's quality pressures from the business, right? Along with compliance-driven, mandates to meet kind of the compliance requirements, if you will. And then you have the business, right, who wants the right talent as quickly as possible, right, with a seamless experience. And so I think the tensions or the friction points, if you will, that surface from that are actually really more balancing how you drive a holistic transformation strategy? How do you make decisions around technology? How do you make decisions around the process while balancing those competing priorities? Being quick, being efficient, being cost effective may not be innovative, right? And so I think those are more what we see. And as a result, I think the hidden part of it is that clients or organizations that we work with are missing opportunities to accelerate on their tech strategies or on their transformation strategies because they're looking at those things independently as opposed to holistically.
Yeah, I think of you mentioned kind of the holistic approach there. For years, we've as humans, we've just bolted on new technology to things, right? I think back to the old GPSs in car systems, and I'm dating myself a little bit, right? It was an external piece of hardware that you kind of just stuck to your window, and then auto manufacturers kind of wised up and said, oh, let's put it in the dash. Let's get people from point A to point B so that we can connect this information, connect this data better, have more accurate pinpoints on when you need to refuel, because we know what vehicle you're driving and how much fuel you're using, right? All of this is slowly but surely, I think that experience is matriculating its way into human resources, which is honestly, I think kind of funny, because for years, the conversation that I heard and we had at Phenom was going up against this constant battle of human resources and recruiting is not a cost center, right? It was viewed as that because they weren't revenue producing. But now I think that school of thought is almost turning on its head, where it's, oh, you need talent in order to make dollars and cents out of at the end of the day. So I want to ask you, has it reached the point where business leaders are beginning to feel a sense of urgency when it comes to connecting all of those technologies and making the experience not only seamless and a quick fix, as you put it, for candidates, but also the business and HR operations as a whole?
I think for sure. I think most of the C-suite organizations that we work with view attracting and retaining top talent as a top priority. I don't think that has changed. And in fact, I think with AI disruption and technologies that are coming online, it becomes even more imperative to have the recruitment organization enable the experience with technology and to foster agility to meet those business needs. What I think we often see clients tackling now is absolutely looking at how to optimize their core, and then also how to find the right, if you will, add-ons to your point, right? Yeah. Where are those points where our core technologies are not able to drive the experience that we need? And how do we adopt and implement them in an efficient and integrated way? And I think it goes back to those tensions, right? Our clients are experiencing cost pressures. Executives are looking at not only things like AI disruption, but also managing cost pressures, managing risk in a very dynamic global environment right now. And so what that translates into for recruitment organizations is the need for agility, the need for scalability, and also the need to really think through how technology can drive those things. At the same time, what that means for a recruiter versus what it means for a candidate experience is different, right? Yeah. There's technologies that can certainly accelerate the process, that can automate things, that can increase speed, provide productivity gains for recruiters, and all of that, right, can drive a number of those metrics. But on the candidate experience side, I think you're right. I think what we see organizations, I think, still struggling with is tying the candidate experience value to business outcomes. I think the idea of being able to articulate what the business value is with delivering a top candidate experience, how it reduces turnover, how it reduces attrition, how it impacts brand reputation in the market, right? Those things are very much tangible, but we often see them kind of secondary to how much cost savings or cost avoidance am I going to get by automating this process, right? So I think absolutely it's on the radar and it's a top strategic priority, but activation and how to get there is where our clients are kind of focused.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a bit of a maturation process, right? We are all still just learning artificial intelligence and what it can truly do. I don't care what YouTube ad you see or what LinkedIn ad you see and how, everything is running smoothly. There's still bumps in the road, right? I know that from my personal experience working, on the social media side of things. my boss will say, hey, I need video clips that are perfect and, will go viral. And it's like, we're learning. We're all still learning to get there. And I think organizations maybe want the simplicity and the speed now, but they have to deal with that maturation process, right? Which is what I think leads, to your point, to bolting on some of those technologies where it's, all right, this particular organization is fantastic at the candidate experience, but we also need that employee experience there. Am I completely off there where the speed and simplicity is certainly a top priority for leaders, but right now, with the pressures economically as well as financially from a business perspective, they're not ready to wait, right? They need fixes now. There are investors, there are board members, there are people who, we need better candidates, we need less turnover, and we need it now. Is that kind of resulting in some of these disjointed candidate experience? I guess is my long way around that question, where they're so focused on speed and simplicity right now, they don't have time to wait.
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly right. And I think what we try and work with organizations to do is figure out that you can accomplish both, right? The technologies that are available in the market today that are enabled by AI absolutely have use cases that can accomplish all of those things, right? And again, it goes back to tying candidate experience to business value is not something I think our clients are as focused on as tying it to hard cost savings or hard cost reduction, but absolutely the things that technology can enable to deliver an awesome candidate experience, right, is very much also the same technology that can create the efficiencies, the productivity gains, the things that may impact the workforce composition, the things that may impact how recruiters show up more as an elevated strategic partner to the business versus some of the manual churn that exists on the back end of the process, right? And so reading the report, that we're talking about here was so interesting, right? Because you look at some of the stats and you see that, and I'm kind of going to group some of the stats, right? But in many cases, over 80% of the organizations surveyed, right, do not have the bolt-on or the features toggled on that enable the candidate experience, like the ability to infer or point candidates, if you will, to jobs based on their profile or based on their skills, right? Even just things like geographic suggestions, what roles are open in a certain geographic region, and then hyper personalization, right? We've kind of made the leap from Gen AI to agentic, but Gen AI can massively help personalize career sites, personalize marketing campaigns, which is really what candidates want. The technology is there, they're interacting with the technology, but they don't want to feel like it's not human, right? You still have to have the personalization, right? So those technologies are there, but those same technologies can help recruiters on the back end very quickly match candidates to open roles, very quickly and more accurately stack rank candidates, right? So you have the speed and the quality on the recruiter side as well. But I just thought that was one of the things that jumped out at me as I was reading the report as well.
Sue, welcome to the program. Awesome to have you. How are things?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Super excited about today's topic. Obviously, Deloitte released its annual 2025 global human capital trends, excuse me. I want to ask you, how did the insights from, engagements and insights from last year differ, when we're comparing these year over year? What were some of the new insights that we found?
Oh, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
We actually have the pleasure of doing the longest running longitudinal study of human capital ever done. So it's a great question. I think one of the things that's different from last year's, we had talked about the previous year around organizations facing this boundaryless world of work, right? Where work is no longer defined by jobs, the workplace is no longer a specific place, and many workers no longer are considered traditional employees, right? And I think this year we found in our report that this is creating tensions, and that boundaryless world of work is just getting even more so, especially due to AI. And so leaders are just feeling the pressure to be able to navigate in this world that's so much harder to navigate because our traditional boundaries or definitions of what we've depended on for the world of work are just kind of crumbling and falling away. So we definitely felt that in terms of leaders and being able to kind of navigate in this new world.
No, it's funny to kind of think about, maybe work. I want to say, early 2000s, late 1990s, where it was simply limited to like 9 to 5, right? And then
yeah,
the kind of oncoming of the invention or regular use, I'll call it, of email and it being available on your mobile phones blurred those lines a little bit. Fast forward to 2020, where everyone was kind of working from home and people had different working hours. We had this really global workforce that came together, so much remote work. And those lines blurred even more. And now you look at it in 2025 with the onset of AI agents and artificial intelligence kind of generally accepted. It's the picture is no longer clear. It is an abstract work of art where those lines are completely blurred. So awesome to see those changes.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned even the lines blurred between AI and workers. We call it convergence in this year's trends, where it used to be that it was like AI was either automation or augmentation, and then it was human and machine collaboration. Well, we're seeing this era where those lines about what AI does versus what worker does are increasingly blurred. So it's a great example. And some of the other like boundaries we're seeing shattering are like, what is the notion of the job? Well, traditionally our work was defined by job, right? It was a set of repeatable functional tasks. But today, our research shows that most workers are actually doing work outside of the boundary of their job description, or the notion of what is a worker. It used to be just an employee, right? It was a singular full-time staff, as you alluded to. Now it's a full ecosystem of workers, contractors, gig workers, AI agents that create value or perform work for an organization. So many of those boundaries are shattering. Or I'll just take another example of employee engagement, right? It used to be that was the fundamental measure of relationship between organizations and workers. But oftentimes now we're wondering if a better measure might be trust, right? After all, measuring how much discretionary effort workers are willing to expend for their organization's behalf only benefits a company, but whether or not it helps workers is far less clear. So is trust a better measure? So we talk about it in terms of proxies. Do we need to get beyond kind of the proxies like employee engagement and try to measure actually what's going on, measure work instead of just the job, as an example?
Yeah. No, it's fascinating times. And obviously the report jumps into multiple different trends. And I would love to go through all of them today, Sue, but we simply don't have the time. So we'll kind of dive into 4. And I think we kind of alluded to something there. Let's start with some of the macro trends that maybe we won't get too nitty gritty with, and then we'll dive into some 4 key trends. What would you say are those overarching macro trends that the report holds?
AI penetrates everything. We have a specific AI trend around that we thought was kind of an underlooked at area, which is how AI is impacting the employee value proposition and the very experience of people at work. But AI penetrates every single one of our trends. It's a big one. This notion of what do you measure is a big one. So, for example, we used to measure productivity. It's a big one, especially in the era of AI. But do we need to measure outcomes versus outputs? Another big kind of macro theme penetrating all of our trends is this notion of what we call at Deloitte human performance. So it used to be that most organizations, and still today, obviously we focus on business outcomes, absolutely critical. Things like innovation and revenue growth, quality, things of that sort. But what we see is that organizations sometimes think of it as an either or equation when it comes to human outcomes. Things like greater employability for workers, basically creating value for workers as human beings. So greater well-being, greater employability, skill development, and growth. And what we found in our research is that it's not an either and, it's a multiplier effect. So if you create more human outcomes, then you're going to have greater business outcomes. They mutually reinforce one another. So that notion of human performance threads throughout all of our trends as well.
Yeah, no, it's an exciting time, and also exciting to hear that the kind of employee well-being is being bubbled up to those business outcome conversations, right? When you first started talking about it, that sounded like a conversation in a boardroom, right? Of, what's our output? What is our bottom line? And now it's how are we improving the individuals that we employ? How are we getting the most out of them? Because when we do that and they are happy and hardworking individuals, the business benefits as a whole. You mentioned that AI drives through all of it. We're going to talk a little bit about AI agents specifically in recruiting, right? It is a hot topic in our industry. I want to ask you, what type of conversations are you having with clients when it comes to agents? Are they understanding it? I know when the topic first started, it's all confusion. Are we getting past that point where people are beginning to hypothesize about the kind of output or the approach to rolling these out? Or is it still in that kind of infancy stage where people don't know how they're going to apply these yet?
We're in a mixed world. I think some organizations are really actively working on it and experimenting. Some are still trying to get their arms wrapped around it. I mean, when it comes to AI agents, I almost think of them as capabilities. I think that's a useful way to think about it. Capabilities embedded in tech that can be done. I think organizations are spending a lot of time thinking about things like the use cases of where to apply it, like in talent acquisition, as an example, which is very, very valuable. They're thinking about change management, right? They're thinking about reskilling and upskilling as a result. They're thinking about how roles are changing. But one of the things that we are seeing that they're not looking at as much, and we suggest they do, is how when workers are increasingly using AI, like AI agents, there's all kinds of forms of AI, how that's actually changing the experience of people at work, like recruiters, as an example, in talent acquisition. Sometimes we find that it's creating silent impacts. So as an example, from our research, we oftentimes think that AI makes our work easier. Well, our research shows that not necessarily. So oftentimes it makes it harder because AI often does the easier rote work, leaving behind the hardest tasks for workers. Or we're finding that AI sometimes reduces person-to-person interactions, and that can contribute to loneliness and isolation. Or we're finding sometimes that it can reduce human agency. It can tell a person what to do rather than letting them decide. So those are some of the unintended silent impacts. It's all based on how you use AI, of course, but we're really encouraging organizations to also look at how it's being used, design those interactions with AI very intentionally to improve those human and business outcomes, and especially those human outcomes because it's being underlooked at oftentimes by organizations.
Approaching this with intention is certainly a key point there that you called out. I work in obviously the creative world. And if I had $1 for every time that someone said, well, can't you just use AI for that video? I would be a rich person. So I wouldn't be talking to you right now. But you're absolutely right. It can remove some of those easier tasks, but there are concerns and consequences to that. Loneliness is one that I don't think is being talked about enough, where you can have a conversation with an AI agent or one of these GPTs, and that's not going to give you the same satisfaction or fulfillment of talking with a human. So fascinating to talk about. I would love to talk about it more, but we have so much more to get to. We're talking about some of these rollouts with intention. What are some of the places that your clients or the folks that you are speaking with are rolling out AI and agents as we see it right now? Everyone talks about kind of the mundane tasks. What are those specifically that people are trying to tackle with them?
Oh my gosh. I mean, all over the place. I mean, I would suggest that you look for areas where you get both business and human outcomes, that human performance thing. But one of those areas, for example, I'll just give you an example, is we're seeing a lot of organizations implement AI coaches. A fun example from our research is an organization had an employee that had very expert knowledge, and only he had it. He was retiring. So instead of having him kind of train all the workers left behind after he retired on his expert knowledge, with his permission, they used AI to monitor all of his phone calls, all of his work on his computer, all of that passive data. They baked it into an AI agent. They called it Digital Doug. His name was Doug. And then they used it to help their workers as a coach, as a learning vehicle, right? And so AI coaching, we're seeing a lot of. It improves not only workforce performance and business outcomes, but it improves learning and development and skills for workers, that human performance equation.
Shout out to everyone on the Deloitte team, especially Bhawna, Sue, and Brandon. It was a pleasure chatting with you and have you on the program. I know Bhavna's been on here a couple of times. Can't wait to have Sue and Brandon on again. I loved everything about those episodes. I think they're super high level. We talk about, where the industry is and how much it has changed in the past year, as well as how much we anticipate it changing in the future. I know Brandon and I got a little bit into a conversation of science fiction throughout that episode, so definitely check it out. As I mentioned, you can see the links here on LinkedIn in the description for all 3 episodes, or if you're so inclined, you can head on over to Phenom's YouTube page to watch them there. And of course, they're always available on Spotify and Apple Music. I hope everyone has a safe, happy, and healthy weekend. If you are in Vegas for HR Tech, stop by the booth, say hello. I'll be the one in the bedazzled pants. That is true. I do have bedazzled pants and I will be wearing them. So come say hello, roast me for my pants, or perhaps compliment me, whichever way you feel. I have thick skin. And I can't wait for any of you who are attending Rising. Feel free to stop by our booth there as well. But we're going to record a couple episodes out at HR Tech, so exciting to dive into that. If you're not able to attend, don't worry. We'll recap some of the event themes and what people are talking about. But like I mentioned at the top of the program, have a safe, happy, and healthy weekend. We will see you next Thursday because we do this every damn Thursday, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.